Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody. It is Wednesday evening, November 13th. Means it is time for the season premiere of our Under the Radar podcast.
Woohoo!
I'm Chad Sherwood.
Ooh,
That's David Griggs, and joining us from Bracketeer.org. Uh, he is simultaneously at 17 games right now, doing three podcasts, including ours. Is Rocco Miller. Um, but this is our Under the
well,
Radar
it's great
show.
great to see you guys at the pre-party. For the premiere, we had to roll out the red carpet and everything. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it was pretty. I was thrown out, but yeah, the preseason show was great.
For the pre-party for this pre.
Yeah,
Griggs.
I was just supposed to know that that was top shelf alcohol just because it was on the top shelf.
All right, buzzer does work. But I'll give you one more shot here. For those who are new to the show, what the heck is Under the Radar?
Well, last night we had the Champions Classic, or I'm sorry, two games between four programs that were like big brands and highly ranked. That's not under the radar. Essentially, under the radar, the simplest definition I can give is that it is the 23 regular one bid league. So it's obviously not the Power Four, and it's not the other conferences that normally get more than one bid, such as the Big East, the Mountain West, the American, the West Coast, the A10. And I think I got them all, or did I miss one?
I think you got them all.
Yeah, it's everybody else. It is. There's no rule that says these conferences can only get one bid. Truth be told, everybody starts out at zero, and if a league like the SWAC or what we're seeing from the Sun Belt now goes out and collectively does very well and gets a lot of big wins, they'll send two and three teams. But generally speaking, these are the one bid leagues.
And there are 22 of these leagues in total,
22, yeah, yeah.
and we are going to be going through them basically in alphabetical order. Although each week we are going to have a feature conference of the week, and which I generally pick about 3 minutes before we start the show. Just for a quick look at who has some compelling stories for this week. But I'm going to start here by pulling up our screen share with our standings, and if it works, it should show up on the screen. If it didn't work, then oh well. But there are the standings, and you can see our feature coverage of the week. I thought it would be a good idea to start off with the A-Sun because there's a couple of
Yes.
teams that pick up some big wins here in the opening week. Uh, Real quick, for those of you that don't know what all these numbers are on the screen, long story short, we discussed them on Monday night during our Hoops HD report. Get a little more detail there, but there are a ton of metrics that rate teams. Most important ones at this point in the season are honestly your record, which is column D right
Yeah.
there. Your overall record and your record versus D1. Things like the net and the WAB and strength of schedule all be coming out from the NCAA in early December. Our Joey Fortune's J&G rating is on this column also. Wanted to kind of take a look at. Those are updated as of earlier today. But long story short, we're going to start with the A-Sun. By the way, you see two teams in red, Queens and West Georgia. That's because they're ineligible for the NCAA tournament this year. That's the only reason they're in red. Uh, Rocco, let's start off with story number one. Might be North Florida, with
Pull them up, Chad.
with a couple of wins. You don't even see the South Carolina win there. You do see the Georgia Tech win, though they did fall last night at Georgia.
North Florida, yeah, quite the story. Got the chance to talk to Matt Driscoll yesterday before the Georgia tip-off, and man, is he full of energy! Amazing press conferences throughout last week's run, where they not only had two Power Five wins, but they had to squeeze in the Charleston Southern home opener, and they demolished them. And it's a really nice mix of players. I think they were overlooked preseason, no question about that. But Josh Harris being a freshman, going out and putting up 22 points and 7 boards at Georgia Tech. They out rebounded both the Gamecocks and the Yellow Jackets, which is kind of crazy when you think about the Gamecocks having Nick Pringle and Georgia Tech having Baya and Dungo, two of the better rebounders in Power 5 basketball across the board. These Ospreys are playing with a relentless effort, a lot of leadership, a lot of strategy too, just focusing on in-game situations. I think in both games they had. I know for a fact in the South Carolina game, 6 of the last 7 possessions going into halftime they got stops. 5 of the first 7 possessions of the second half they got stops. And in that little window, which doesn't seem like a lot to the average casual eye, I think they generated a plus 12 on the scoreboard. That right there could be the difference between an upset or no upset. And And so these guys are veterans. Driscoll's been there 16 years, if you can believe that. And they're certainly going to be feisty, and they have a really nice mix of young talent and veteran leadership.
Yeah, and they've finally got a few easy games here before, I guess, a road trip to Nebraska in early December and end of December, a road trip to Florida. But got a chance to actually pick up wins that they should get as opposed to ones that they shouldn't get that they got anyhow, I guess. Sorry, Griggs, go ahead.
Well, yeah, Matt Driscoll has been there for 16 years, and he's done an amazing job. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, my memory gets a little foggy the more alcohol I drink, but weren't they a transitional team when he first took over?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, and he's been to NCAA tournaments. He's really built them up, done a phenomenal job. He's one of those guys that I'm kind of surprised why you don't hear his name mentioned when other jobs come open. Maybe not Power 5 jobs, but Atlantic 10, Conference USA, American type levels. He's done a phenomenal job there. Again, to take them from transitional to some of the years that they've had while he's been there. And again, the start that they're off to now with what looked to be a bit of a depleted roster, at least from the outside looking in coming into the season, he's just a hell of a coach.
Hell of a coach, Griggs. I think one of the problems with getting one of those jobs is it has been 10 years since this team was in the NCAA tournament. And that is a big factor, I think, a lot of times when you talk about those job offers. But we'll see, because I do agree with you. I think he is a really good coach.
Yeah.
And Griggs, the other story in this conference, I got their team sheet pulled up at the right. Austin Peay, maybe not quite as notable because there was only one real notable win. They went to Butler and pulled out a 2-point win. Also picked up a solid home win over at Chattanooga.
Yeah, both of those, they looked really good. I was really impressed with the win at Butler. Part of that may have been that I was overvaluing Butler a little bit. I couldn't believe they weren't picked better in the Big East. I thought that they would be certainly an NIT team and maybe a fringe NCAA tournament team. And Austin Peay went there and won. And they followed that up the other night with a win over Chattanooga. We'll get to Chattanooga here in a little bit. I know they're winless, but that's a Chattanooga team that went and really competed with a very good St. Mary's team. So I'm actually nothing against Matt Driscoll in North Florida. We're gushing over them, and I know that they had the road bye wins, but I think I'm actually a little bit higher on the Govs right now than I am the Ospreys.
Well, we'll find out a lot about them in a couple of nights here when they go to Tennessee.
See
if they can at least stay in the game. Griggs.
Yeah, they're not going to get that one, I don't think. But they're a good team.
You see the rest of the standings here. North Alabama also out to a 3-0 start in the conference here.
Eastern Kentucky, a really good showing the other night in their game. They lost, but
their game against Clemson.
I think all four of those. Yeah, I think all four of those can give Lipscomb a run. Lipscomb was the pick on paper, and I think that's maybe our next story is the heartbreaking fashion that they somehow lost to Belmont last night. I don't know if we want to do that in the Valley section or this section.
Let's hit it right now, Rocco. Go for it.
Well, I mean, they had an unbelievable win probability. I'm not sure if Ken Palm's chart is updated yet, but I sent a different version on our email thread last night because they were up 12 very late and then up by I think it was 8 with 1 minute and 11 seconds to go. Somehow allow Belmont the opportunity to get an and one to not only tie the game, but the free throw put them over the top for the 1-point win. And man, they had an inbounds play even after that entire collapse. That was just a really well designed play. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but it was a down screen to Ognisevich, and it would have just been the most incredible ending to a game because he's wide open for the alley-oop dunk. The pass was just barely too high, slipped through his hands, and the game ended. But if that is executed, it would have been a dunk at the buzzer to win a rivalry game. Either way, what an atmosphere.
Yeah, it was a set play for an alley-oop that broke wide open. Everything went right. Yep. It's just the ball was thrown a little bit too high. Had the pass been there, it would have been an alley-oop dunk to win the game. Since we're on this,
real quick, let me just throw this in here, Griggs.
Yeah.
With about little under 3 minutes left, according to Ken Palm, Belmont had a 0.7% win probability chance, less than 1% chance that they were going to win that game, and found a way to win it. Go ahead, Greg. So,
Well, yeah, but the Battle of the Boulevard, when we rank our
mhm.
favorite rivalries, not just under the radar rivalries, but God, this one it always delivers. They used to play home and home. Now I think it's only once a year, but just one of my favorite ones. I kind of want a second one. I wish they'd play again.
Here's the upcoming schedule. I think we lost Rocco's picture there at least for a second, but Greg's real quick. Here's the upcoming schedule for these teams. Anything that really stands out for you on the schedule other than Austin P Tennessee game we already mentioned,
That's the one that kind of sticks out the most. Lipscomb, can they rebound and do anything against Western Kentucky? Uh,
and then Kentucky on Tuesday. So
yeah, and then Kentucky
a
on
little
Tuesday.
crosstown rivalry here Tuesday. Also Bellarmine at Louisville. So
Yep. That it looked like that one was going to go away. They've been playing for a while. Even when Bellarmine was a G2 team, it was a fixture exhibition game. There was talk that Louisville wouldn't renew it, but they did, and I'm glad they did. So glad that one's still going. Rocco, are you with us? We don't. I think we lost
we're
Rocco.
going to try to get him back. Well, while we try to get him back, Griggs, we're going to go through alphabetical order for the rest of the conference. So we're going to jump backwards just one league to the America East, uh, where wow, everybody other than Lowell already has suffered a loss, which is a little bit strange this early this season. And probably the most shocking one was Vermont's actually sitting there with two losses, one of them being that Merrimack game.
Yeah, the Merrimack game was stunning. They had what I thought was a really good win to open the year at UAB to go on the road and get that win. They were blown into the sun by Auburn after that, and it was the score kind of was like, oh God, what happened? But you're still Auburn's really good. They were just coming off an emotional high. You can sort of overlook that one, but you could not overlook the Merrimack game. I'm still really high on Vermont. I think they're a 25 plus win team, but I've never seen a team show out so well in their opener and not show out at all in their next game just a few nights later. The way they did against Merrimack, it was just a really shocking, disappointing loss.
I think the other team, though, Rocco, I think we have you back here. I have
Yep.
been I was impressed with Lowell, what they did in their game against St. Peter's, especially this is a St. Peter's team that almost took down Seton Hall, almost took down Rutgers already this season.
Yeah, I think Lowell's they're going to be pretty good again. I know they lost a few of their seniors last year, but Quentin Mincy looks really good, and they start five seniors still, even though they lost a couple key guys. So just a tremendous job run with Duquette's program, Pat Duquette. Build this thing up over the years, and now these last few years they've been really formidable, and it's a real like solid program right now. They'll go to Gonzaga this Friday. That will be a nice learning opportunity, and then they'll go to UW and play the Huskies on Sunday, which actually I'm a little concerned about for the Huskies because I think they're going to have their hands full with this Lowell team. Just the fact that Sprinkle's new over there, and they'll have Odie adjusted to the time zone, and probably be a little mad after what Gonzaga is likely going to do to them. Yeah, it'll be an interesting weekend, and I think no matter what happens with the Riverhawks, that those two games will help them a lot down the road in terms of being tougher and learning about themselves. And with those five seniors, like that's the formula you need to not only be able to win games on the road, but advance in your conference tournament, and God forbid you get into the NCAA's and pull off an upset there too. So they've got a really nice mix, and I was probably a little too low on them in the offseason, but I think, ever since exhibition games started and now we're into the regular games, they've just been growing on me. The early data has them as the clear number one team. Of course, that's factoring in Vermont getting crushed twice. But I think Lowell's going to really compete again.
Yeah, well, if you look at the ESPN SOR, it's Maine who's off to the best start. I mean, that's just one of many metrics, but
Yeah.
Maine actually an interesting week with the road trip to Quinnipiac, followed up by I believe there's one other road trip. They're at Richmond next Wednesday, so uh, we'll see if Maine has anything. Maybe they could pull off one or maybe one of those games. We talked them up a little bit in the preseason, so
Yeah, I,
Yeah,
I, I like
Richmond's
this.
really struggling right now too. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, one of my dark horses really struggling. That's a shocker.
uh,
Likewise.
Yeah.
Griggs, how about a conference with two D1 wins already? Big Sky Conference. It has not been a very good start for this league so far.
Yeah, as I always say, You sometimes you just got to tell yourself when you're playing a road bye game, no matter how bad it gets, they're mailing the check tomorrow. So, you know, but not what's discouraging about this is that, it wasn't a lot. I mean, it certainly was a share, but it wasn't necessarily all road bye losses. No one's really looked that good the first week.
Well, there's some things to be said about that. Like Northern Colorado, they've only played one D1 game, and it went to double overtime against Colorado State. I'm sorry, against Colorado.
Colorado.
Yeah.
Thank you. I knew there was
really
one game. That was it. Yeah.
Rocco, I know where you're going with that. I really thought Northern Colorado was going to win that game. I would have. I think they would have won it had it been on a neutral floor at Northern Colorado. I think Northern Colorado is better than Colorado.
That's a big statement, in my opinion. I mean, we're talking about Big 12 resources against and a team that was, a winner in the tournament last year.
Yeah, but
against the Big Sky program they've produced great transfer portal products. Let's not get that twisted with Dalton Connect and of course St. Thomas. But this is a team that's still not got over the hump in actual team success.
Yeah, I just meant this year. I love this Colorado program. Yeah, but
I'm just saying if you go into Boulder and you go to double OT, I mean that's a great sign, and they'll get a neutral court opportunity tomorrow night against South Dakota State. I think that'll be a really fascinating game, especially with what we've seen from the Jackrabbits. I also want to just call out like Idaho State and Portland State. Portland State goes into San Diego, and it's again, it's not like earth shattering to go in and beat Steve Lavin's bunch on the road, but they thoroughly dominated. And in their opener, they played Wazoo into the 90s. They end up losing by 8. But I think Portland State's starting to look pretty good. They play, if you haven't watched them, they're the number 2 tempo in the country. They play helter-skelter, but they've got some real athletes to work with. And in Idaho State's case, it's almost the opposite, where you have just a slow-down, grinding team, but they gave fits to both Arizona State and USC, losing both games pretty close. USC only by 6, ASU by 7. We've already seen those two teams blow out, or in Arizona State's case, they have a great road win. USC's case, they handled Chattanooga easily. So really good early returns for both the Vikings and the Bengals.
I think the games to look at this upcoming week are that Northern Colorado South Dakota State game, followed up by Northern Colorado is going to Wazoo on Monday night, Rocco. So that they're the team that I'm kind of watching this week, especially when you look at this upcoming schedule.
This is a good Northern Colorado team, I think.
And Don Monson's boys, good start in Eastern Washington. They weren't expected to do much, and they've already kind of outshined that with the win over Seattle and a couple other competitive performances.
Right. And are we sure Dan Munson's the coach there? Because they're not playing 10 road bye games.
Don Munson.
Don Munson, sorry.
Yeah, Don Munson.
His son. Yeah. Rocco,
correct.
Thank you. Over in the Big South Conference, which I've got on the screen now, we're very high on this, High Point heading into the season, and they are undefeated.
Oh, yeah, and they're steamrolling everybody. I don't think any of these games have been very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So Jackson State ends up being a 9-point margin in the end. I guess we'll give them credit there. But we're going to start getting into the meat. They get UAB Friday. Really looking forward to that. UAB's got
a great game.
Yeah, after that opening night performance where they lost to Vermont, UAB's got a chip on their shoulder coming in. And then I think we're still a week or two away from the Paradise Jam. Or I'm sorry, is that the same one that they're in?
Here's High Point's in the one with Missouri State, ODU, Boston College, Boise's in there, South Dakota State's in there. That's the
Paradise Jam,
yeah.
Okay. I think there's a real opportunity there for them to get to the finals and play Boise, and for them to really build a resume. I think they need that. Of course, they get North Texas and UAB at home. You really wish they could have got more games. They tried, but let's see what they can do. They're certainly good enough.
Yeah, as far as this week goes, Griggs, here in the conference, mentioned that UAB High Point game.
That's a good one, yeah.
Is there anything else that you're specifically circling? I don't really know that there's much that I am.
Not quite as much as that one, no. I mean, that is, if there's a showcase game this week for this conference, it's that one. And what an opportunity for High Point getting UAB at home. I think High Point's going to win that one. I really like this High Point team.
Yeah, they should at home, but it'll be a good game. And I think real quick shout out a team we don't talk about near very often over the years is the Presbyterian Blue Hose, who just beat Wofford tonight for the first time ever. And Kobe Stewart, he's got the eyes and attention of some NBA scouts that I'm hearing. He goes for 26-10 tonight. So watch out for the Blue Hose. They're sneaky good. Wofford was the sexy pick in SoCon with all these returning minutes, and Presbyterian held their ground and won at home against the Terrier.
Well, and if one of shout outs tonight as well, quick shout out to USC Upstate. Out
Yeah,
of
played
nowhere,
well.
they led Wake Forest most of the game tonight. Wake did pull it out by 5, but I did not expect them to be in that game at all against Wake. So,
Brand new staff there too, so it's all brand new at Upstate.
Rocco, let me stick with you over in the Big West Conference, where I think we're pretty high on this Irvine team heading into the season,
Oh,
and they have not disappointed
yeah.
yet.
Yeah, I mean, going on the road and really handling both Loyola Marymount and Northern Iowa. This Irvine team, they're not going 11 deep like last year, but they're still playing 8-9 guys. And with Bent Lukton there in the middle, I mean, he had a really dominant game in I believe it was the Northern Iowa win, but also Justin Hohn still there. Andre Henry is like Mr. Ball Security. His metrics are through the roof. They're just playing so cohesive. So many good pieces back with Devin Tillis and Miles Chi as well. And a great bench. It's and Irvine scheduled really well. I'm very much looking forward to seeing them up in Canada a couple weeks. I know it's early to talk about that, but get them 3 straight days. That's going to be some high level competition, and I think the Eaters are the favorite. But in the meantime, they'll have Pepperdine come visit, and that might be another knockout punch to the Waves.
Yeah. Another thing about the Eaters, both those wins on the road, both those wins decisive on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And Chet, if you go back to the results, one of the things the Big West did is look at all of not just the wins, but UCSB going to Portland and winning, and
By a million.
yeah, and this conference won a lot of road games so
It's a
far.
good league, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
It's a good league.
a couple other shout outs here. Hawaii sweeping the Rainbow Classic 3-0, including a resounding win over San Jose State.
No, I mean
Uh,
that we're investigating that. I think Hawaii was
Hawaii,
using
Hawaii
6
Pacific,
players at once.
Hawaii
and,
Pacific was a good battle. I enjoyed watching that game.
and there was, a little shout out here to UC Riverside winning the
Yeah.
crosstown game there last night against California Baptist by a 76-9 score, the exact same score that Baptist won last year in this matchup. So this has turned into a great rivalry here.
It kind of is.
At least in terms of how competitive the games have been, and
Yeah.
so
And Long Beach lost by 1 point to that South Dakota State team, and Long Beach is all new under Chris Acker. So if one of the bottom teams is playing one of the better under the radar teams that close, this league is going to be full of just carnage, absolute
Yeah.
carnage in this league.
and there's a lot of good games on the schedule here coming up this week, including Long Beach is going to be at Gonzaga. That's still a week away. We mentioned
They're
that
playing
Pepperdine
tonight.
Irvine game. Long Beach tonight is at San Francisco. Yes, coming up a little later
Yeah.
here. We are till about 9:30 Eastern right now, 9:40 Eastern. A few other games circled. Weber State going out to Hawaii, so
Mhm.
maybe a few others on there. But Griggs, how about the Coastal Athletic Association here, where we got 3 teams out to 2-0 starts, and Charleston is 2-0 versus D1.
Yeah, I really like this Charleston team. I like what Chris Mack has done out there. I know it's early, but they've certainly impressed me so far. Hofstra Wilmington also unbeaten, but the one Townsend, despite being 1-2, I like how they've or 0-2, I guess, against D1. I like how they've played in some of those games. I thought that they were competitive. They were taking on some teams that were probably over their head, but
St. Mary's in South Carolina. Yep.
yeah, and they played reasonably well in both of them. So I'm not giving up on Pat Scarry and Townsend yet, but Charleston is just. I think it's their league to win. I know Rocco's going to comment on this, but I just like this Charleston Cougars team.
Well, we got to hype Towson up until the Canada tournament starts,
Yeah.
Mr. Griggs. But after that, we can move to Charleston if they get beat up there. But Towson's scheduled really hard, so their record is a little different than the rest of the league. But a quick shout out to the Northeastern Huskies, completely dominated Harvard tonight by 20 plus.
Beanpot game, yeah.
They had Princeton on the ropes, let that one slip, but they looked really good in their opening game against Boston U. This looks like a much improved team. There's a sixth man freshman that a lot of people slept on, I think, coming into the year. Ryan Williams had 21 off the bench today against Harvard, and I think Harvard's got a phenom freshman as well. We'll probably talk about during the Ivy League section, but Ryan Williams outplayed him tonight. And this Northeastern team's on their way to Canada in a few days to play Central Connecticut up in New Brunswick. So very excited about both teams, and that will be a good game this weekend.
Absolutely. And actually, here is the rest of the upcoming schedule. The entire Coastal. There's a lot of games on the screen there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Real quick, I'll just highlight the Charleston games. I'll pull them up there. That's Florida Atlantic, Liberty, and Citadel. And Griggs, those Towson games, there they are. It's the James Madison and the Nichols games coming up this week.
Yeah. Florida Atlantic, I know we'll talk about them here, or will we? I guess we will.
On Monday night, we talked about them. Yes.
Yeah.
They are not
off to
under
a
the radar
good
anymore.
start. I mean, I think Charleston can get that one, especially at home. At FAU, good again, despite losing virtually everything.
Let's jump right on over to Conference USA and Rocco, team that I'm very impressed with so far. Louisiana Tech goes to Arlington, picks up a dominating win, and then I guess it's not actually on the screen there, but they picked up a 10-point win over UMass and I believe this game was in Nassau Coliseum, was it tonight, or wherever it is out on Long Island? Yep.
Uniondale, I think technically.
Uniondale, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Arlington's a team I was very high on coming into the year. We'll see how that materializes, but either way, going on the road and winning that one by 15, and then obviously much more regionally friendly for UMass to play over there in Long Island. And La Tech dominated from the jump. UMass made some nice halftime adjustments, but La Tech had the durability to fend them off late to win by 10. That will look nice later on when hopefully if you're a Bulldog, the net ranking will matter for this team. And now they've got a nice 12-day layoff. They'll play in a manageable Gulf Coast showcase where don't get me started on that, but they did have to take a non-Division I team where Louisiana Tech gets to play the non-Division I team.
Used to be a bracketed event, and now it's a round robin with a non-D1 in it. Yeah, that's go ahead.
Even in their event, they'll play the Salukis and EKU. EKU maybe give them a little bit of a sweat, but it might come down to road Memphis, and certainly that home Grand Canyon game in December will be massive. But right now with the trifecta, the way that Amory Abram played today, he's got good experience, transferred down from Power 5. Mr. Sean Newman Jr., 12 assists, 10 of those, I think, by halftime tonight. Just a great facilitator, and we all know about the big force inside with Daniel Bacho. They've got some real key pieces that these are high-level ball players. I think Louisiana Tech's got great staying power, and I think they've got Conference USA on notice.
They do. I mean, Griggs, there are a few other teams. Liberty picked up a nice road win out at Seattle, among other things, and Middle Tennessee's off to a very nice start as well.
Yeah, those two, Western Kentucky 0-2 against D1, but really talented, really took Grand Canyon, albeit a short-handed Grand Canyon team, to the wall out there. It seems like I'm always critical of Western Kentucky as being really talented and not playing up to that. But despite the 0-2 start, you got to keep in mind, obviously, not just teams' records, but who have they been playing against and how have they looked. Even though Grand Canyon was shorthanded, we're certainly going to talk about them probably a lot later in the show. They still have a really deep bench, and that was still a hard game to go out there and play. And WKU damn near won that one. They really almost beat. Yeah.
And you can see up top there, CUSA 5 WAC 4. There is a Conference USA WAC Challenge Series going on this season. CUSA with the 5-4 early lead. I think there's like 18 or 20 games in this series, so we'll be tracking that for a few weeks here. One of several conference challenges we'll be tracking. We'll get to a couple others later on here. But as far as this week's schedule goes in CUSA, Liberty might be,
won that game at UMass. You all had already mentioned that. Liberty
playing two teams we were just discussing, Florida Atlantic and College of Charleston this week. Those are the part of that. Is that the Field of 68 event this weekend, Rocco, I believe? Yeah.
It is. Yeah, year 2 of 3, and Charleston's the host this year.
Also look at this Lipscomb Western Kentucky game on Sunday is another one I think I'm kind of circling here. And an undefeated New Mexico State team going to Dayton next Wednesday.
Yeah, they can't overlook the Islanders though. The Islanders are feisty. They didn't play well
Yeah.
against the Lobos. So I feel like game to game they're going to make a lot of adjustments. That could be a sneaky tough game tomorrow against Corpus Christi.
Hmm.
Uh, Horizon League. We've got to give a huge shout out here to Detroit
Oh,
Mercy, who already has twice as
oh,
many wins this
wow.
season as they did all of last year, albeit one of them being a non-D1 one. But also, congratulations to IU Indy under that name, getting their first two ever
They
wins.
look
Neither of
good.
which neither one was a D1 win, but they were competitive with Xavier in their one D1 game. So
Yeah, they were. I don't know if that says much about IU Indy or says little about Xavier. But yeah.
Their offense looks awesome. IU Indies. I mean, I know that the non
Yeah, there is
D1 game.
something we haven't uttered in a while.
Well, yeah, if you look, I mean, it's just that one game against Xavier, it's got them registered as the sixth best offense in the country right now. If you
Yeah.
look at Torvik numbers, it's crazy, but they're actually running a lot of good stuff. I think Corsaro there, the new head coach, he's actually, no question, he's raised the floor at least, which
Oh,
is all you can ask
absolutely.
for.
Yes, it has. He has raised the floor. The floor was not just in the basement; it was below the basement. Like they
It's
had
all
a
between
wow.
them and Mark Montgomery over at Detroit Mercy, as you guys called out, which was great. Yeah, I mean, I think there's enough already that you can be excited about that they can win over 5 games in the league if it all works out, and maybe even more. Who knows?
Yeah,
all I know is there's a lot of red on the screen here for this first week of the season. You would and they're not all just by games here. Also, that they're losing. They're
yeah,
losing a lot of these games against other
Yeah,
mid-major, other under the radar programs. Wright State was
Fort
up
yeah.
Wayne.
against Toledo
Fort
tonight for
Wayne's good
basketball.
though. I think.
Yeah.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah, Bello was amazing last night. He had 31 and 9 and unstoppable. And it wasn't just the fact they were playing Bethune Cookman, but they were wire to wire. I rewatched their game against UCF because I was on the UCF pregame show last night. And I was like, I didn't realize how great they played in that game. It was tied with, I think, 4 minutes left. They had the lead for a lot of the second
Yeah.
half. So they're right there. And UCF's obviously beaten Texas A&M and FAU in a very similar games. So I think Fort Wayne might be the team to beat right now.
Well, here's the upcoming schedule. Fort Wayne this week is hosting Southern Indiana and at Penn State next Wednesday. Those are the upcoming
I
games
I
there.
think
Okay.
yeah, those are they could make some noise at Penn State.
Meanwhile, if you're on the IU Indy bandwagon, they're hosting Eastern Michigan and they're going to Iowa State. So here
We're
we
on it,
go.
baby. We are on it.
Well, I am on it. Yeah, IU Indy, the rebranded.
Eastern Michigan's a win. You heard it here first on the UCR
Okay.
report.
Oh
Let's
boy.
talk. Let's talk
We're
about
winning that
another
game.
team which picked up a huge win, which may not end up being that huge of a win at the end of the day. But Columbia started the season with a win at Villanova, Rocco, and maybe it's
Yeah.
just because everyone's going to win at Villanova this year. But they are 4-0 for the first time in God knows how long.
Yeah, had to really hang on against Lehigh yesterday. They did have a
Yeah.
nice lead for a lot of it, but they let them back in. That was a little concerning. But I've been calling him out last couple shows. Geronimo Rubio de la Rosa, probably the most fun name to say in the country, and then also the guy just really does everything. Another 24.8 rebound performance in the Lehigh win, plus 3 steals. That was big. But they have I mean, everybody back basically from last year. I think they were top 10 in the country in returning minutes. And honestly, like the situation with Coach Ingles, this is Jim Ingles now. What is it? Is 10th year, 9th year? Yeah, 10th year. I'm sorry, it is the 9th year. And I'll be honest, if he doesn't get to the Ivy top 4 this year, he's probably gone. So they're all playing for a lot. They're all in. They have great kids. I covered them last year, and I'm really pulling for them. I think they've got a lot to work with, and they can make a run if Princeton slips up, or Yale's actually looked a little more average this year. They could really become the number 2 in the league if it keeps going
Yeah.
this way.
Go back to their page for a second there, Chad. Just want to look at their upcoming schedule here. And again, this is Columbia. I think the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way in up to Rutgers. Uh, they could win all of those. They really could.
Yeah,
Now,
they
I don't
do.
know if that.
They have a winnable schedule. Mercyhurst has a little life this year. I wouldn't overlook them at all. They actually look pretty good, and I watched them a bit tonight, and they did look pretty good. They're a very good defensive team, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're solid. They got a couple players.
Yeah,
Uh,
and part of that is just reflective of their schedule, but they can go to Long Island and win. They could beat Stony Brook and New Hampshire at home. I think they can go to
They need
Albany, who's
to.
not very good. They could win all the way up
uh,
until the Rutgers game.
how about Sarah Lawrence? Isn't that kind of unfair, 5-on-1?
Yeah,
I
I,
just wish we could have got them to play in the Canada thing instead of some of these other games. But
Uh,
yeah.
a
that's a different story.
couple other quick notes in this league. Yale mentioned they've looked beatable. They lost to Illinois Chicago by 12 points. That was a little disappointing performance there. Uh,
And how about Princeton?
Prince's look good, and I gotta give a shout
You,
out to
you think
Penn.
they have? Oh, I've been
They won. They won. It was a road game at Northeastern that they won. I mean,
Yeah, Northeastern, as Rocco pointed out earlier, a big win tonight. I've actually been kind of disappointed in Houston. They or not Houston, Princeton. They've slight difference in size, money, but they have won all three games. But I thought that these were three teams that they wouldn't really have to sweat at all, and they barely won all three. They could have lost all three,
uh,
and
but I
they're
think they
not looking
did.
like the top 40 team that I thought they
At
would
the end of the
be.
day, I think they won the game, and I think Prince is going to be there. So I don't agree with you, Griggs. But let's see what happens over the next week or two. I also want
This
to
is
give
a team that I thought could get
And
inside the bubble.
Northeastern,
That's what my take on Princeton was coming in.
a,
So
a quick shout out also to Penn. Penn has looked a little bit better. They did lose that game to Lafayette by 2, but I think Penn has shown a little bit more life than I thought I'd see out of them so far this year. Maybe enough to contend for that Ivy 4. But
yeah, they could.
Griggs, Princeton, they're hosting Loyola, and they're at Mary Max. Let's see how those two games
better win
go.
both of those. Yeah, they'll probably win them both by about 4 and 6 points.
Yeah, and I think yeah, the other thing is it came out that Devin Austin, I think he's going to miss the whole season. He's a projected Princeton starter. So now they're rolling with two sophomores in the lineup. I think that's going to take
Yeah.
a little while to adjust to.
Is he the kid who missed off last season as well, though?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
he
So
did. He missed all of last year, so you know, it's been 2 years since he's played, unfortunately. But we'll
yeah,
see
it's
what
bad.
happens. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's a different injury. I think it was an ACL last year, and it's something else this year. But just a shame for the kid. Uh, Metro Atlantic, Rocco Siena off to a slightly surprising 3-0 start here.
Yeah. Sorry, let me pull up the screen there. Siena's been amazing. Like all three wins down the wire. I think the first two were OT wins, right?
Yep.
And Jerry McNamara's first games as head coach. But I mean, these are games they were probably losses on paper. You could even argue the third one with American. American was my pick to win the Patriot. Might not be aging very well at this point, but for them to be that competitive right away is a good sign. The staff there is mostly former Syracuse players and a friend of mine, Ben Lee, who came over from Washington staff last year. They're working really hard at this, and they've got some talent. There's a kid named Justice Schultz that won Player of the Week for the Metro Atlantic. He had 31 in the Bryant game, and I think he's a JUCO transfer if I remember correctly. So there's just some hidden guys they went out and got, and they're really producing for him. He's kind of the culprit at the top of the list there. But I'm really curious to see because you figure a brand new regime with a bunch of new pieces, they're only going to get better later in the year. So the fact that they're already finding ways to win by the margins in late crunch time key situations, that's going to bode really, really well for them down the later in the year. When this to me, Chad, we thought Quinnipiac was the team to beat, and maybe they still are. But after watching them a little bit, I think this league's pretty wide open.
I'll give another shout to one other team. Heading into today, I don't know if it changed as a result of today's games, but heading into today, there was one team in the entire nation with 3 road wins already, and that's the Rider Bronx.
That's right, ride or die.
Yeah.
Rider had 3 road wins heading into today. They are 3-1 on the season at this point.
If you saw my bracket, which was brilliant earlier in the week, I'm pretty sure we had Ryder as a protected seed.
um, you
I'd
got
love to
everybody's.
see that. I'd love to see that.
Siena coming up this week at Albany and at Xavier. That might be a little bit over their heads. And we mentioned that
Seeing
Quinnipiac.
Albany game's always fun. I think they clobber Albany, but yeah, Xavier. I don't know, but IU Indy was in there. Texas Southern and IU Indy.
Maine at Quinnipiac Friday night. That might be a little bit of
Yeah,
an
that's
interesting game
worthwhile.
too.
That's a good one. That actually is. Yeah.
And Vermont at Iona on Friday night as well. A few games in here worth
Very
watching.
good.
But let's jump right on over, Griggs, to the Mid American Conference, where
Ooh.
uh, I got to start by issuing an apology to one of the Michigan schools. I said during our preseason show that if you're a non-Ohio school, you're not going to be any good in this conference. Central Michigan picked up a road win tonight at George Mason, so my apologies to them. Showing a
Yeah.
little life there, but Griggs, how
Uh,
about the rest of this conference?
Well, and that's a really good win, a really surprising win, at least to me, by Central Michigan. One of the teams I was really big on, and I got to keep reminding myself that it is just 8 days or 8 or 9 days into the season. I've been a little disappointed in Ohio U. They just haven't shown out the way that I thought they would. I really thought that they could win the league, and I don't know if I thought they could run at the bubble, but figured if anybody in this league could, it was them. James Madison, I mean that's a tough road game, Illinois State, but I guess that's just it. Like one of the things about being a good team is that you're supposed to be able to win games that are kind of hard to win. I thought they were good enough to get at least one of those, maybe even both of them, and they didn't.
The one undefeated team here is Kent State, although it's only been one D1 win.
And
But I, but Rocco, it was at
they're not
Louisiana.
now. I think
Okay,
they
and they
just yeah.
and they just went final with a loss at Auburn as we record this, but that was at
Yeah.
Auburn. Come on.
Right. And they played
Good
well. I mean,
effort.
the final score didn't
Good
show it,
effort.
but Kent was in that game. Yeah.
Uh, but I do like what I've seen
Make
from
them
this
play.
Kent team though
Yeah.
so far. And another quick note there, you see, here's another one of those conference challenges, the Sun Belt MAC Challenge. Opening night, all 12 games were at Sun Belt schools. The MAC did pick up 4 road wins. In
I thought it
January,
was
they're
good
going
for
to,
the
yeah, I thought it was a solid performance by the MAC too. I agree. And
Yeah.
there'll be 12 more games coming up in January. Matchups not even yet determined. They will be at the MAC schools. So the MAC with a good chance to win this challenge, even though they're down 8-4 right now.
Yeah, and it should go directly straight down 1 through 12 off the net at that time.
Yeah,
However, if there's potential rematches, you have to shuffle it a little bit.
right.
There's no rematches allowed. Is
And
what I'm
I think
saying.
a week or two, about maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the games, they announce what the matchups are. So we'll
Yeah, it's like
keep in
a
touch.
Sunday night, like 2 weeks before. Yep.
Yeah. Uh, Upcoming schedule in this league here, though, Rocco. I say Kent State Auburn's already gone final, but beyond that, I guess there's a few other games we can look at here, including that Ohio team that Griggs was mentioning. They're at Memphis Friday night.
Yeah, I mean they're coming off a 10-point loss to Illinois State. That's a tough place to rebound for sure. And I thought Memphis was a little better than we thought they would be in that first week. So
Yeah,
we'll see if that
definitely.
continues. And yeah, some of these teams are just playing way too many big time teams that are going to be big time for like Northern Illinois had a nice win yesterday, but they're not. Chance of them going to Bradley and winning is not very good. Bowling Green going to Michigan State. Good luck with that. And Miami, Ohio going to Michigan on Monday. That's probably not going to be very good for the Red Hawks either. But otherwise, these other teams who are playing Horizon level and OVC level teams, they're the ones who need to carry the weight for the next week.
Yeah. I see Detroit Mercy on here a couple times. I see IU Indy on here. There's it seems to be a lot of Horizon League games actually coming up
Yeah.
this week. Uh,
Yeah.
Rocco, over in the MEAC, we have 2 D1 wins so far. Both Norfolk State and Howard have picked up wins. The Howards win just tonight against Tennessee State down in Atlanta in the HBCU All-Star game.
Yeah, good win. I wish I could have saw more of it. I heard when I joined you guys during the pre-party that it was on YouTube. I totally
There,
missed
there
that.
was there was yeah, at the very last minute they announced a YouTube link to it. I didn't think the game was going to be typically be shown at all, but I didn't catch much of it either, honestly.
Yeah, just looking at the box here, Bryce Harris, he's an all-conference player of the year level guy, 17 points, 11 rebounds to lead the Bison. That's an important win for them because they started off going to Kansas and Missouri and just getting the floor wiped in both. So confidence building, get their first D1 win out of the way, and they're going to keep the party going down to South Beach where they're going to play FIU on Monday. And the other good story was Norfolk State playing just an unbelievable game against a really talented James Madison team, beating them by 14, getting the opportunity to play them at Eccles Hall in Norfolk. That was a tremendous win for their program, and that will go a long ways. But then turning around and playing that pesky William and Mary team that I think we talked a lot about during the preseason show, they got bit, and that will happen in this part of the country where they're playing a lot of regional games. Now they're going to have to really iron sharpen iron mentality as they get ready for Hampton on Saturday, because Hampton had a nice showing themselves against Providence last night. So
Yeah.
that'll be a good one.
They got a couple local games here. They got Hampton, then they got a local ACC team because the ACC is right in their backyard as well, right? At Sanford next Wednesday. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Those regional
one's pretty
games
tough.
that Rocco mentioned, against eight.
It stayed regional for about 16 days, and then
Yeah.
now it's going to get crazy after that.
Yeah. There's the rest of the upcoming games in this conference now, all bye games, and conference will get very interesting when we get to conference play in the middle of January or so. But Griggs, Missouri Valley Conference, conference we were pretty high on going into the season, and I know Drake is undefeated. But your thoughts on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, Drake, just the 1D1 opponent. They've kind of jumped out. I guess one of my thoughts was at Northern Iowa, Bim Jacobson, and then a little slow to get out of the gate. They kind of had their doors blown off the other night. I think it was UC Irvine that
Irvine,
just
yes.
yeah, that just beat them. We kind of talked some about that already. I this is typically one of the top rated under the radar conferences, if not the top. I don't see it being as strong this year as what we have, and more often than not, and again, this could develop, but more often than not, it feels like the teams at the top of this league are making a run at the bubble and are even inside of it. I don't see that happening this year.
Yeah, Rocco. I mean, the most impressive win I think I've seen at the conference is UIC by 12 over Yale, and that's a little
Big
disappointing at
win.
this 10 days into the season, isn't it? From
It
this
is, but
league.
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's playing a different variety of teams and opportunities, so you got to let it materialize more. At least a month and a half in, we're not even scratching the surface yet. I think Drake's a team like I talked about in preseason. I really like. They got that really comfortable win over Stephen F. Austin in the opener. Again, these are all new faces under Ben McCollum, the legend from Northwest Missouri State. Bennett Sturts is a guy that's got all league capability, and Mitch Muscari is getting all sorts of love as well. He had 26 in that game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them because they got a big one I mean, they'll have Gulf Coast this weekend, but then they'll start their tournament on the 21st against Miami, a team that's also not lost and looked very talented. So I think that Charleston Classic, when they start with Miami, is wide open, and they can do a lot for this league. As Griggs mentioned, it's a little down on paper, but I think the opportunity is still there. Belmont getting that win at Lipscomb helped the league, and I think they'll get better. And I also think Murray State's still going to be there, and Bradley they bounce back nicely as well.
But Belmont was interesting. They've got a quick trip cross country to go to Air Force in between that. They're in town rivals there and a home game back next Tuesday. Little weird trip there. You'd think they would get two games in on a trip like that, but
Yeah, why
there's the
not
rest of
play?
the upcoming.
I mean, why
They
not
got
play
Air Force
another front
too.
range team?
They got Air Force to come back to Belmont next year, so I guess
Okay.
that was worth it.
But there's the rest of the upcoming schedule. Northern Iowa, Wichita State tomorrow night. Another game worth watching,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, the first time they've played since Wichita left, so it'll be kind of cool locally, and Ben Jacobson still being there, that'll be important for Wichita fans.
Uh, Griggs, one of our favorite leagues, the Northeast
Oh
Conference, half of
yes,
which is ineligible because of transitional rules. And with their win tonight, Mercyhurst, I mentioned them earlier. They have the best record in the league. Two
just
D1 wins, the only team with that.
yeah. So first year transitional team, a pretty good story there. Chicago State, their first year in the conference, and they are everything that they have been in the past and then some. But there actually is. Okay. There actually is a story in this league. I'm sorry, Central Connecticut went in the Providence, took them to the wall, really had a chance to beat them the first night of the year, and you kind of dismiss that. I think everybody's take on that was just a really disappointing showing by Providence, and it was more about how bad they were than how good Central Connecticut was. But then they went on the road and got a really big road win. And how about Central Connecticut?
Yeah, that win at St. Joe's, who turned around and then beat Villanova a couple nights
Yeah.
later. Yeah, this Central Connecticut team may be the team here to really watch as we head through this season. Uh, it's like, okay, you won a game at St. Joe's. It's not like it exactly is the greatest win ever, uh, but for this league,
For
I
this
think
league,
at
yeah.
this stage of the season to have that win, have the performance, and an interesting game coming up on Saturday against Northeastern.
Yeah, very interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, they're Mercyhurst has got a solid foundation there with Gary
That's Mercy.
Manchell.
Yeah.
Gary Manchell stuck around, much like Davenport did when Bellarmine started. There's numerous examples now during that transition. But I think the more important thing was getting a guy like Jeff Planutis to stay for his senior year. They have three seniors, and I think four seniors actually in their starting lineup. And so, they're built to win big in D2. And if you're that good in D2, you should be able to get a decent chunk of wins in D1. Kind of reminds me of a couple of years ago, Queens, very similar model. They ended up being very competitive in that first year, getting a win in the ASUN tournament. And so I could see a scenario like that. But when you're in the NEC, if you're that good, you could actually win the NEC tournament.
A transitional team has won it. I
All,
mean,
all
it's
Yeah.
these all these
And year
teams.
one,
Actually, I'll throw this out there. Every transitional team in D1 this year is eligible for its conference tournament. The only we'll have a chance to see all of them in March Madness if they qualify. Keep an eye on Saturday. This game, Lemoyne at St. Bonaventure. Lemoyne has shown a little bit of life. They hung with UConn for about 10 minutes tonight, and that's it. But they were Syracuse the whole game earlier this year already.
yeah, they were. Yeah.
and I do think though Central Connecticut's the team to beat. They got the road win at St. Joe's already.
Yeah.
They played Providence to the wire. They've got a lot of good pieces back, including Jordan Jones from last year's team that won the regular season. So make sure to check out their game against Northeastern in Canada this Saturday.
Oh yeah, that game is in Canada. Little one-off.
Oh, yeah.
It's the only game. It was supposed to be a multi-team event. Ends up just being the two of them going up there for a single game. But
We're going to make the most of it.
Yeah.
Ohio Valley Conference, Griggs, and the league does have 1, 2, 3. So they're up to 5 D1 wins. They picked up two of them tonight. So they're up to. They picked up one of them tonight.
Nearly a 100% increase in the number.
Two last night, one tonight. Now they're up to 5. They were at 3 when we were talking. We were 2 when we were talking about them on Monday night after our show. But not a good start for this conference anywhere.
Not really at all. Tennessee Tech had the win over Georgia. Oh, but it was West Georgia. Had it been Georgia, it would have been good. Eastern Illinois went to Indiana, and had they won that game, then we'd be talking about them. But they lost by 45. There just isn't anything. This league right now kind of feels like a shell of itself from when it had Murray State and Belmont and Austin P and was routinely around the 13 line, sometimes around the 12, sometimes even inside the bubble. I right now, and I know again we're a week and a half in. I don't see. I start looking at hotels in Dayton because I think that's where the champion of this league is going.
Yeah, I was high on
Little Rock has been very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean the fact they lose to Winthrop and Arkansas State, not awful, but they weren't really competitive games.
They weren't even in the game. Yeah.
But here's the upcoming schedule there. I guess if we want to keep an eye on that Little Rock team, they've got UTSA and Tulsa this week, but I don't know.
No D1.
Maybe we should just move on to another conference. How about that? Rocco, how about the Patriot League? Coming up on the screen right there, there it is right now. Colgate almost beat Syracuse last night.
I feel like they always play them tough. They either beat them or it's like
they do
a heck of a game, but Syracuse won't push them out of their schedule. They'll keep playing them anyway.
How many times have they played for like 100 years or something? I mean, I'm not even pulling that out.
I think other than the COVID year, other than the COVID year was the only year that they didn't get their matchup in. But they've played for a lot of years, and I believe Colgate had won back-to-back years until last year, and now Syracuse has won 2 straight.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. And Cornell gets that deal too. It seems like yearly as well. Just the local upstate, way up there, New York part of the state, get those locals teams in, but they're tough teams. The other team I'll bring up here is Josh Loeffler, brand new to Loyola, Maryland. wiped the floor at NJIT, which, whatever. It's a D1 road win, but they won by 18. They played that Columbia team we covered earlier to the wire, lost by 3 on opening night, showing some really good early signs. Obviously, we don't know how good or where they're going eventually, but I thought he brought in some nice pieces. Jordan Stemke's a sophomore that came off the bench for 15 in the NJIT win. They're really showing some good depth 1 through 8, and really just a team I didn't expect a lot out of, especially in his first year. They've had a couple nice performances to start the season.
All right. Upcoming schedule here. If we want to talk about that Loyola team, their next games are at VCU and at Boston College. While Colgate's got a game. I think Colgate's got a trip to NC State, who actually struggled with their game tonight. I forget who they were playing.
Coastal.
Coastal Carolina. Yeah. Griggs over in the SoCon, which is also involved in a challenge series with our feature conference tonight, the ASUN. They are 4-4, by the way. I didn't mention that earlier, but that's going to be a series that goes on for a couple months here as well. But we've got Furman undefeated, and we got VMI undefeated.
VMI, and how about the Citadel also with a D1 win? VMI Citadel, we love the Battle of the Boulevard. I think VMI Citadel, we all agree that that's the greatest rivalry in the history of sports. It is. Watch it. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Oh
it is good, but
yeah.
Unfortunately, when we look at the screen, other than that VMI win at Bellarmine, I guess Furman's win at Belmont, maybe that's that Furman win at Belmont we got to talk about. That's probably the premier win so far.
I think it is. And Furman's probably the team that jumps off the page the most, way more than anybody else. I'm sorry, what was that, Rocco?
I've been impressed with Greensboro. They played the SMU tough. I know it ended up being 13, but that was a good battle. And SMU's destroyed the other teams they've played. And then Gulf Coast they took care of in the opening night. And I wasn't expecting a lot because Greensboro's got a lot of seniors to replace, but they're out there doing it pretty early on here. So good sign for them.
Yeah. I'll also give a shout out, and Griggs mentioned them earlier. Chattanooga 0-3. But these were all close competitive games.
Yeah.
They maybe not so much the USC game, but they played St. Mary's really tough on a long West Coast trip there, and we're right there with Austin Peay as well.
And when you look at their upcoming schedule, the next we'll go back. I mean, the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, and they're probably going to win 8 they might win all of them or all but one before heading to Indiana. This is a Chattanooga team that's going to win a lot of games.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing to note there, Chad, is Bash Whelan just came back for the Austin Peay game, so he's still not 100%. And they've also been missing Frank Champion. So once they're full strength, they could actually start getting pretty hot. So they had to play those games without two of their starters.
And they played well.
And they played well, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's some of the upcoming games. Furman gets Tulane at home coming up here on Friday night. An interesting game. And Griggs, I know you're circling their game against Oglethorpe next Wednesday.
Oh, sure. I mean, Rocco's going to be there. I think we're going to board his private jet, and we're going to catch us some Oglethorpe hoops.
VMI's going to be in one of the events here coming up on Friday with Tennessee Tech, RGV, and Charleston Southern. Then they got a trip to Pitt. I don't think they'll be undefeated next week when we do our show.
I'm looking forward to watching those games, Chad. Just a quick call out. The inaugural Greenbrier Classic. They're going to be on during the morning for me, so afternoon in the East Coast. Standalone games from Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. What else could you ask for on a Friday?
Well, you do have to get your subscription to PassTheBallLive.com.
Da Ball,
T-H-A. PassTheBallLive.com. It's going to cost you about $15 for the $20 for the event, but
have they comped that for us yet?
It's better
I think they took it away after we talked about
it. Better than the games are being played tonight on MSG Plus, which to get them you have to subscribe for the year for $320. So those did not get on my screen tonight. So
what games are those? We had
Hofstra is winning, by the way, in that event.
It's a Hofstra Hall and the La Tech UMass games that were tonight.
It's on MSG Network.
Okay.
If you have
MSG Network.
Streaming.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If you don't have MSG Network like
Yeah,
me,
it's
$320.
$635 DirecTV. It's on right now.
Greg's the Southland Conference, where
Oh
obviously
boy.
McNeese was a story heading the season. They still don't have a D1 win.
How about Incarnate Word finally getting a D1 win for the conference?
Yes. Well, no, East Texas A&M has one as well. And quick shout out to our newest name in D1, East Texas A&M, formerly known as Texas A&M Commerce. They beat Southern tonight. Just went final a few minutes ago. Uh, Incarnate Word, the other D1 win. McNeese, though, Rocco was the story. Uh, Obviously, we didn't expect to beat Alabama, but the loss on opening night to South Dakota State was kind of a shock, even though it was up in South Dakota.
Yeah, it was somewhat of a shock just due to the fact that McNeese is so deep, is so loaded, and I still feel pretty secure that they are one of the top under the radar teams long term. But that's an interesting way to start the year. And good for them for taking on the challenge. That's a game that a lot of teams wouldn't want to play. South Dakota State in the Pentagon, unless you're not expecting much from your team this year and you get a nice check. But I think what McNeese is going to learn a lot, and it was impressive how they played Alabama close on the road after Alabama had just torched a couple teams. So I think that will help the confidence factor. Sincere Parker didn't really get to play a lot in that opener. He got out there still coming off the bench, but I thought he was St. Louis's most talented player last year. And of course, he goes for 19 in that Alabama game off the bench. This thing's going to get rolling, and it's not going to take much longer. And they get a huge home game against North Texas on Monday.
Interesting. North Texas just beat Minnesota on the road tonight as we're recording this, so don't overlook that game at all here.
No, not at all.
I believe it was a shorthanded Minnesota team. I think they were without Garcia.
They got Garcia did play, but
did he play?
Were missing a couple of the other reserves.
Well, Garcia was questionable, so he might not have been quite 100% though. That is, though, the upcoming game here for McNeese, their game against North Texas. I don't know that there's anything else worth really circling. Greg said that the schedule here, but there it is on the screen. If you're looking to see East Texas A&M at UConn Tuesday night, there it is. You can go watch it, and it'll be over by 5 minutes in. It's already over.
It's already over.
Congratulations to the Southwestern Athletic Conference, still looking for its first D1 win on the season. They've had a couple close calls, but they're not there yet.
Alabama State gave LSU a really good game. Despite not winning, Grambling went into Ole Miss and almost beat them. I couldn't believe it. I don't mean this to sound like a backhanded compliment, even though it was. I don't think I've ever been so impressed with a conference that hasn't won a game.
I don't know what else to say here. Obviously, it's a conference that is most likely going to Dayton.
Yes.
And it's
how about Alcorn State nearly beating Xavier? John Stolika's Xavier Musketeer.
Yeah, they actually, yes, yes, there it is. Alcorn State lost to Xavier of Louisiana, a non-D1 game. Although, in their defense, It was a true road game against a non-D1 team. Very rare event that we see here in involving D1 hoops.
Very rare.
Here's the rest of the upcoming. Here's the upcoming schedule. A lot more bye games in here. I don't really see much in terms of a winnable game on the schedule. Pine Bluff at Incarnate Word, maybe. South Carolina State. Bethune gets a home game against South Carolina State. That might be the one to circle for that first D1 win. Yeah,
I keep forgetting Cookman's in this conference now.
Yep.
Them and FAMU.
Yep.
Former MEAC schools.
Over in the Summit League here, South Dakota State. We already mentioned them. They are undefeated. Rocco. They obviously picked up a win over Long Beach after the McNeese win.
Yeah, the Long Beach game was a little sketchy. They had to rally late to get the win. The reason why I think South Dakota State's back where they're used to being, probably as the hunted again, even though Kansas City was the pick to win the league, is a big Australian 6'11", 260-pounder that was in the second round of the NCAA tournament last year in Oscar Clough. Just an unbelievable difference maker at the Summit League level. And even against McNeese, I mean, just frustrated the heck out of them. He goes for 23 and 14 in the Long Beach win, 14-14 in the win over McNeese. And it's the kind of guy who brings a high IQ to the court. Almost, I don't want to say he's exactly like Cam Krutwig was at Loyola Chicago, but he's the kind of player is the other teammates are going to get more freed up. He's going to draw a lot of attention from defenders. He's going to be there in the right space at the right time to gather rebounds. And honestly, he's a high-level player playing in the Summit League. So that's making a talented freshman like Joe Saylor much more effective out of the gates, who had 21 against Long Beach. You have Owen Larson, Matthew Moores, etc. Everybody's going to benefit from Mr. Clough being in the mix. And I think their ability to go far and win this league, it completely skyrocketed when they brought him in.
We haven't seen much from Kansas City yet. They've only played one D1 foe, and it was Iowa State. So it's a little too early to by any means to write this KC team off.
Definitely not writing them off. They're going to be awesome.
Yeah, as far as that Kansas City team, they got a trip to Creighton, and then they're hosting another non-D1 team. So at least we're getting the non-D1 games out of the way for Kansas City here.
Yeah, and one other shout out to St. Thomas. They're off to a decent start. They got the road Green Bay win by 14, a Green Bay team that just got a big win tonight by a lot of points over WIU. And when they went to Oklahoma State, it was a game they got down early, but they had a really strong finish to lose by 9. Whatever. That was never really in the balanced second half, but I do think this program is kind of ripe. And what is this, the last year of transition? So
if the rule change that they expect to pass goes through, this will be their last transitional year. If the rule change does not happen, they will have a 5th transitional year because they went from D3 to D1.
D3, that's right. Yes. But I think they're capable of being a top 3. Those are the 3 teams I'm looking at the closest right now in terms of the Summit.
Yeah, real quick, we already mentioned that South Dakota State and Northern Colorado game coming up here tomorrow night, actually. St. Thomas at Arizona State on Sunday. Maybe circle that one. That could be a little bit interesting.
Yeah, and one other note to share. I covered Denver in the opener against Stanford. Very competitive bunch. Played decent against Colorado State last night as well, losing by 9.
They did play well in that game.
They had a promising, I think he's 20 years old, freshman from Poland. Played a lot in the opener, 27 minutes. Timo Sternicki, he just left the team last night because and we found out later. We thought it was a family matter or a family emergency at first. Turns out he has a girlfriend in Poland that really missed him, and he moved back for her. So that is
God bless them. God bless them. That's a shame for the team, but hey.
We'll see how that plays out as the next 5 months go by.
Over in the Sun Belt, Griggs, while everyone has a loss already, there's a couple teams that have impressed me, including both Arkansas State and Troy so far.
Yeah, Troy playing really well in their game tonight at Arkansas. Didn't get the win, but they were in there for about 25, 30 minutes. Arkansas State, how about their performance at Alabama? A really good defensive showing. We mentioned what they did to Little Rock earlier when we were covering the OVC. Those are 2 teams that really jump out, and then Troy also really good.
Yes, again, that's the second time.
Troy good.
Troy good, and Troy is good.
Troy's
good, and Troy's good as well. But
Troy's good. And how about Arkansas State? Really good.
Rocco, can you save the show, please?
Well, I think Arkansas State's still the cream of the crop in the league just from a talent perspective. And, of course, they also went to Alabama and hung tight a little bit. They had a little bit of a disappointing opener, having to struggle with Akron and go to OT and get that done. But they definitely look like they're starting to get the machine rolling against Little Rock last night on Tuesday night, 80-63. That game they had well in hand against a local rival team. And I think that'll carry forward into the Stephen F. Austin matchup on Saturday. So Arkansas State, I think, is still the team to beat, but I like Troy a lot. They were up at halftime against Arkansas. It slipped away late, but, of course, overwhelming talent on the Arkansas end. Troy's got some really nice pieces of a ton of discipline, great defense. They'll be around all year. And then the other team I got my eye on, at least early on, played really well last night. A 5-point loss at TCU, but Texas State
Yep.
Yeah, they were right with them all game long. And Josh Ogaro's been there. He's a senior. They start four seniors, and they have another senior off the bench in Drew Drinnen, who played 33 minutes. So they've already got their rotation down to 7 players. It's like they're already playing like it's March. So I see a lot of cohesion, a very competitive group in the Bobcats. Curious to figure out what their ultimate ceiling is.
A few quick look at the upcoming games here. Arkansas State, their game is going to be hosted Stephen F. Austin. Troy, they're at Oregon and then at West Georgia. I don't know
Big
about
difference between those two.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and quick here's Texas State as well. They're at Abilene Christian. That's a chance to pick up
that's a tricky
a
one.
road win.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a chance to pick up what could be a decent road win at the end of the day. Um,
yep.
Against the team from our final conference for the night, the Western Athletic Conference. And well, even though Southern Utah is the best one up there at 3-0, it's of course it's the Lopes, the win over Western Kentucky, and their other win to start the season. I'm sorry, it's just blanking. Oh, Cal State Fullerton to start the season. But
Yeah.
what about this team, Griggs?
Yeah, 2 wins. The win against Western Kentucky, they kind of had to come from behind to win that one. They were behind. They were never like getting blown out, but they kind of had to pull that one out at the end. And if you missed the end of it, it came down to the final few seconds. They were without 2 key players. I think that they are expected to be back to full strength for the game against Arizona State. Arizona State,
Big
interesting,
game.
like not an impressive start to the year, but they really had a rough, or they really gave Gonzaga all they wanted in the last game. And when you look at this coming, I still think this is a Grand Canyon team that is legit top 40 and that will crack the rankings before the end of the year. I mean, it might be January, February around then, but this is a team that I think is going to get inside the bubble.
Yeah, they've got that big game tomorrow night, Thursday night here against Arizona State. Then they're hosting UC Davis next week. The only team well, just by 1 point, we'd be talking a little bit more about California Baptist had they pulled out that game against Riverside.
Yeah.
But they played well so far this season, Rocco, and I'm not overlooking them by any means.
Yeah, and I don't think you should. Dominic Daniels Jr. is a phenomenal scorer, talent. He's back on the team. They did play well at home last night. They play a lot of games at home because they do have a big budget to buy home games. But yeah, I'm curious to see how they do in road opportunities and how they do, more defensively. They've had some defensive struggle. Holding Riverside to 70 was good, but that was a slower pace game. So I'm kind of wait and see there. But the team I'm really I got my eye on was that Utah Valley opener. I like UTEP's roster coming back this year. Utah Valley blew the doors off of them by 29. They've got a couple JUCO kids led by Dominic Nelson, who had 21 in his first D1 game, 8 rebounds as well. And Tanner Toulson's still there. He was a guy getting offers from some of the bottom Pac-12 schools. He's a Washington State kid, and of course the younger brother of the older Toulson that played at both Utah Valley and BYU. They've got some real talent at UVU, and their offensive numbers right now, of course, based on that UTEP performance, are off the charts.
Well, it's
But I
only
think
only one D1 game, and the next game is
yep,
North Dakota tomorrow night. That's that, and then
on the road,
yeah,
yep,
it's on the road, but they should win that one, I think.
they should win. Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm really trying to say they could be a real threat in this league.
Yeah. That concludes all the regular under the radar conferences, but we have a little thing we like to do in our under the radar shows after we get to the regular conferences, Griggs, and that's talk
Oh,
about it. You can
the
find them up
mythical
there. Mythical conferences, yes.
Yes.
Uh, and the first one, of course, it's our very first one we followed was the Front Range Conference. We have
Yeah.
Colorado and Colorado State both off to 1-0 starts off of a couple of wins this week.
Yeah, a couple of really good games. I mean, you wouldn't expect anything less from the Front Range.
Yes, these are Colorado, all the Colorado schools plus Wyoming. It's a
Yeah.
Front Range Conference. Our upcoming schedule, no actual conference games, but there's who everyone's going to be playing.
Colorado
Colorado,
Christian at Denver.
that's almost a
Almost, yeah.
almost a Front Range game. We also love in the state of Utah.
The
Uh,
Beehive. Yeah.
It is the Beehive Conference, and no conference games have been played yet. But when we do get into conference play, we know they are playing for this.
Yes.
The old Okra bucket. But there it is. Best team so far, Southern Utah and Utah both at 3-0. No conference games yet. Let's see if we've got any coming up this week. Nah, no.
Yeah,
Well, what about Westminster, Utah, Utah State? That's a
sort of. Yeah,
quasi.
yeah.
Uh,
The old Okokerker bucket, the second greatest trophy in all of sports.
yes. 2 years ago, we introduced the Back Range Conference involving, ignore that Oregon down there. I don't know why that's there. That seems to be a bit of a mistake. We'll get that cleared up at some
Yeah.
point here. But involving those teams over there from New Mexico and Arizona and UTEP in there as well. Also, no conference games yet. Again, ignore that Oregon on there. But coming up tomorrow night, we discussed it already. Grand Canyon, Arizona State. Not only is it a huge game for the Lopes, but it's also a back range game.
It is, yes, a back range game.
And last year we introduced the brand new Top Range Conference. These are games from Eastern Washington, Idaho, and Montana, and Wazoo out with a 1-0 start with a win over Idaho. Griggs, that was a
Yeah.
big blowout win.
Oh, big blowout win. I mean, this game just has a very unique distinction. I mentioned it in the write-up. It's not something that many people know, and I can't think of another rivalry that could ever make this claim. These two schools are 8 miles apart. If you round up, I think it's actually 7.7 miles when I map quested it. But and they've never met in the NCAA tournament.
No games coming up in the Top Range. I don't know, for the last 3 years, we've introduced additional mythical conferences. And I actually, last night I was sitting around thinking, do we need a new mythical conference for this year? Maybe we did. And I took a look.
Oh, wow.
I took a look, and I saw all these teams that we have in these conferences. There's a lot of great teams that we're seeing in these mythical conferences we have already. A lot of championship caliber teams even. And there's a lot of other championship caliber teams out there on the West Coast that aren't in one of our mythical conferences. And Griggs, what I thought was maybe we need to put together a conference with all of these great championship teams. Maybe we just need to put together the Conference of Champions.
Oh, look at this.
Look at these 12 teams. Don't they belong in a conference together? Should
We
be in a
don't
conference.
we don't rehearse. None of us knew this was coming.
There it is. The
just
Conference
where-
of Champions.
I don't see the connection here, Chad. This looks like just a random assortment of teams. Most of them are West Coast based, but then you got Arizona schools, and can you be in more than one mythical conference?
All I got to say is the Pac-12 may be gone, but it won't die for us. We are not
That's
letting
right.
go. And there we go. Sunday night, Cal at USC, first conference game of the season.
Yeah.
The Pac-12 is going nowhere. It is the Conference of Champions. The great Bill Walton, may he rest in
Oh,
peace.
man, yes.
Yes, and I should add, every Wednesday, including today, the Pac-12 Conference is doing a Bill Walton tribute video. So go check that out from today and come back and check every Wednesday.
Okay. I love Bill Walton.
Top 10 lists. All three of us voted here on our Under the Radar top 10 list for today. Early in the season, there was a ton of teams that got votes that didn't make the top 10. So we have a ton of honorable mentions here. But starting off with all our honorable mentions, and one of the two teams that's tied for 10th as well.
Okay.
Honorable
nice.
mentions too. McNeese. Columbia actually tied for 10th place there. We'll get to who they tie with in a second. And in honorable mentions, getting votes not make the top 10. McNeese, Drake, Middle Tennessee, College of Charleston, Rider, Kent State, Siena, Central Connecticut, Liberty, and Vermont.
Wow.
Good, but not good enough for all of you guys. The team tied with Columbia for 10th is Louisiana
La
Tech.
Tech. Okay. Good
Very
pick.
good team. Ninth place all by themselves,
How
North
about North
Florida.
Florida? Yeah, getting up there.
Had
North
they been
Florida
Georgia,
making
they
an
would have.
appearance.
Yeah, if they'd been
Yeah,
Georgia,
but
I think
they'd
they'd
have
been
been
number
real
one.
high. Yeah.
3 teams tied for 6th. Austin P,
Austin P off to a good start. Princeton.
and South Dakota State off of that win over McNeese.
Mm-hmm.
In 5th place, we had the Troy Trojans.
Yeah, and their big win. So,
Arkansas State, conference rival, right there in 4th. Those two teams both coming in right near the top. 3rd place, High Point, undefeated so far.
Yeah.
Second place,
UC
UC
Irvine.
Irvine, the Eaters. And it's
Yeah,
probably no
really showing out.
surprise, but number one, it's the Lopes.
Yes.
There's our top 10 and plus 15 more, whatever we on the
Yeah.
screen. But let's go ahead and pull this down. What are any final thoughts? Rocco, let me start with you.
Yeah, I think the top, if not even the top two-thirds of Conference USA is looking extremely formidable, and it's already starting to show a little bit on the KenPom conference rankings. They are in the plus territory, the 10th best league as we speak. But I think you go around the league, and we talked about Louisiana Tech. They're kind of the obvious choice as the pick to win the league. You've got the superstar in Batcho and the other pieces, but let's not forget Sam Houston's got a ton back as the defending regular season champions. Then you have Liberty with their talent and their resources off to a great start. I think Middle Tennessee's being slept on. They're off to a 3-0 start themselves with a fully healthy team finally after years of just constantly being injured. Western Kentucky's got the two losses, but as you guys have said so eloquently well, they're on their way to much brighter pastures with the talent they have. And then New Mexico State's probably everybody's favorite dark horse in this league. They're off to a 2-0 start. And if you talk to New Mexico State, they believe they can get up to the top. So out of those six, they all have a ton of reason to believe. I would have included UTEP, who I like a lot on paper, but they had that rough game at Utah Valley, so we'll leave them on the outside looking in for this exercise. But this league, I think, out of all the leagues we cover this year, might be the top based on just all the quality. And then anything you can get. Jacksonville State tonight ended on a 22-4 run to stun Georgia State. That makes them 2-1. I think Kennesaw State with Simeon Cottle, maybe one of the most talented players in the whole league, they're going to be tough. I mean, this league, there's only FIU after that. So I think this league is going to be freaking awesome, especially in conference play. But I think they're going to keep making noise in non-conference games as well.
Yeah, keep an eye. A couple weeks here. Kennesaw is going to get Rutgers at home,
Yeah,
down there in Atlanta. Not that far from Ace Bailey's hometown of Chattanooga. So, uh,
place is going to be rocking, Chad.
it's going to be rocking. There's going to be a lot. There might be a lot of Rutgers fans there, though, Rocco. So,
I don't
fair.
know. You got those dancing bananas at Kennesaw. They're not going to
Yep,
mess
yep, yep.
around.
I just want to also give a quick shout out to we did not discuss at all though. Hofstra, just as we're recording this, just went final. They just took down Seton Hall in that other game out there on
There you
Long
go.
Island
Yeah.
tonight. Now 3-0 on the season out of the Coastal. Might be more of an indictment on Seton Hall than how good Hofstra is, but didn't mention
Yeah.
them. Need to give them a shout out.
Need to give them a
Rich,
shout out. A very poor offensive showing in this game.
yeah, what was
But
that? A 49-48 game or something like that? It was pretty
yeah.
bad. But Griggs, you want to finish out the show here?
Yeah, first under the radar, at least under the radar regular season show, a little bit of a more of a serious final thought, which I know I normally don't do. A lot of the legislation and a lot of the stuff from the House case and a lot of the Power Five now with the are you opting in or not roster sizes, it is impacting a lot of the under the radar schools and programs, and it is a little bit unsettling to be a fan of this sport, have a connection to this sport the way that all three of us do, and not know in April when all this is finalized, what will the format of the NCAA be, Division One be, college basketball be. I'm trying to remain positive and think that the television contract being what it is until 2032, that they just can't simply cut conferences out or eliminate their access to championships by saying you have to opt in, and by opting in you have to do this, and essentially remain subordinate even more than you are now. One of the things that's frustrating is that it seems like when under the radar schools and programs ask, what does opting in do for us as opposed to not opting in, they can't get a straight answer. It seems like, they're so high and mighty that just seeing, why are you even asking me the question? Just come in or don't. That's a lot of words to say that like we love this sport, and I think we love these programs. That's why we do this show. And I would hate for the NCAA tournament or the championships, particularly the basketball ones, to change to where these programs couldn't be a part of it anymore, or at least not have a direct link to it be an automatic bid the way they do now. I'm kind of concerned about that. I hope that that doesn't happen and that something is done to fight to make sure these programs keep their auto bids.
Well, Charlie Baker was actually quoted today as saying that he's envisioning a 72 or 76 team NCAA tournament not that far away from now, which might be the way to keep their bids but give more bids to the power conferences, which is what they all want. None of us want to see the tournament that big, although I personally believe it should be at 83 and a half teams. That is my
83,
magic number, 83 and a half teams.
You have a play-in for the play-in.
No, it's just half a team. They have 2.5 players out there on the court.
Yeah.
On that note, on behalf of David Griggs, Rocco Miller, check him out at bracketeer.org. Follow him on X or Twitter or whatever it is. And now there's a new Twitter rival out there also that everyone's signed up for. You can follow us there at Hoops HD. We now have a Blue Sky account as well as an X account. Yes, as of about an hour ago. Hoops HD is on Blue Sky also.
Same here. My Blue Sky about an hour ago.
There we go. Everyone's on Blue Sky except for Griggs is not allowed there.
I'm not on Blue Sky yet. I got to get on Blue Sky.
He already got kicked out.
I've already got kicked out of Blue Sky.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll talk to you again real soon.